Yeah, 3 people went to that. Hello, Gashima.
Hello. Should we wait a little bit?
We just heard that several people apparently went to the doctor today, so
Okay.
there might be a few more coming in, but yeah.
All right. Okay. So let's start.
Right.
Okay. Who's going to do the prayers?
I go for refuge in divine light and the Buddha, the Dharma, the Supreme Assembly. By my practice of giving another perfections, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge in divine light and Buddha, the Dharma, the Supreme Assembly. By my practice of giving another perfections, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge in divine light and to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By my practice of giving another perfections, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings.
Okay. All right. Did you give the homework some thought? Or did you come up with an answer about the home?
I came up with an answer. Okay.
Pad? You can't come up. Yeah.
I can come up with an answer.
Okay.
The one with regard to inherent existence, let's use a pot, and then the pot, what is it, like appears as an inherently existent pot?
Yeah.
It's not mistaken because it's not mistaken with regard to its function.
Oh, if it were inherently existent, I believe it would be impossible to function.
But that mind still thinks like, oh, this is capable of holding water, right?
Well, then what about the blue snow mountain? It's still capable to be climbed up on, it's still capable to hold snow, right?
Maybe I'd say that one. Yeah, then I'd say, according to the Prasangika, that would not be a wrong consciousness.
Oh, so according to the Prasangika, is there no wrong consciousness whatsoever?
No, there is a wrong consciousness. It's
For
that
instance?
which thinks that it sees something and thinks it has a function that it doesn't have. Like if it sees a pot and if it looks at a pot and sees a pillar.
Yeah, but it still has the function of changing moment by moment. So certain functions are still there. And with regard to the so with regard to the snow mountain, okay, so you're saying that's not a wrong consciousness. Of course, it doesn't perform the function of a white snow mountain, but there's still certain functions. So likewise, even if you perceive a vase to be a pillar, it still performs the function of being a visible object. It still performs the function of giving rise to a result. So in all cases, some of the functions are impossible because, well, of the mistaken appearance, but there's still functions that both of them share. So the vase being perceived as a pillar, for instance, they both share certain functions, and those functions can still be perceived, those general functions.
Well, but aren't if it is a function of a pot,
Oh,
then it
sorry, you're
follows it is
breaking
a
up.
function of a
Oh,
inherently
sorry.
existent pot.
There
I mean,
was a small glitch. There was a small glitch. You're breaking up. Now you're gone again. Okay, try again. It keeps stopping.
You all turn off your Wi-Fi on your devices?
are you able to? You can hear me?
I can hear you. You just keep breaking up a little bit, but
Are
try
you able?
again. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So all the functions that an inherently existent pot seems to have. Sorry, we're trying to.
No, sorry, I can't hear anything right now.
So
The internet,
all the functions that an inherently existent pot.
oh, it's gone again. It's not working. All right, try again. Whenever it takes you, try again. So all the function that, and okay, you've gone again. It keeps stopping. It keeps stopping your.
I think our internet's not very good here today. I was noticing it before class as well.
We can try with my phone, but it doesn't usually work very well. I can bring this. We can try.
Which combination? Airtel. Yeah, it's gonna be the same as us for you. Right.
Okay, let's try again. So for a few seconds, it seemed to have worked. So Venerable Teacher, try again.
Well, I was saying that all the functions that an inherently existent pot seems to have,
Mm-hmm.
real pot does have those functions, right?
Right. A conventionally yeah, absolutely.
So
But
then,
the thing is, well, I mean, the inherently existent pot is impossible.
yeah,
Just as the horns of the rabbit being the ears of the rabbit being the horns of a rabbit is impossible. So you're not perceiving the actual thing. You're perceiving something totally different, something impossible.
but it's not like totally different. In many cases, it's in many ways it's similar.
I mean, inherently existent pot couldn't perform a function. It would be permanent. It would be well, I mean, which function could an inherently, like, let's say an inherently existent pot were to exist, what function could it perform?
Well, of course, an inherently existent pot couldn't perform any function.
Yeah. So that's what I'm saying. It's impossible. I mean, a blue snow mountain is different because it can still perform functions. It will still be a mountain. Therefore, the mistake is actually much graver when it comes to the perception of or the appearance of inherent existence. That makes the phenomenon totally impossible. While it was blue snow mountain, it's not that different. It's not such a big problem, you know. It would still you could still enjoy it and take photos and what have you.
Yeah, we could theoretically make a blue snowman. Like,
We could theoretically make one, yeah.
We
Yeah.
had yellow snow mountain 2 years ago because of sun coming from Sahara in Switzerland.
Oh,
The snow
oh,
yellow, really.
oh yeah, the Sahara snow. Yeah, we get that as well sometimes in Germany. We get sand from the Sahara, yeah, and it turns everything yellowish. Yeah. But that's not snow. That's that's sand.
Yes, the snow yellow, that was that.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah. So of course the light, it's if you just talk about like a sunset or a sunrise, again, the snow is it's actually pure snow. I mean, depending on what the light is like, the snow in itself doesn't even have a color. I mean, actually, well, anyway, we're going too far. I don't want to discuss this. But yeah. Okay, well, um, all right. So at least you made the effort. I don't think that is the reason. Well, there is a reason. It's a different one, but well done. The effort to just think about it and compare the two. So no, very good. Anyone else on that? Any other suggestions? Anyone else who's done the homework?
I actually would like to be introduced to the topic. Like what's the homework about? I wasn't here last time.
Mm. No one told you? You didn't ask?
No.
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 Okay.
I
All
mean,
right.
but I wasn't. They didn't tell me about the homework.
Okay, all right, yeah. Okay, so the homework was, well, ordinarily especially in the Prasangika school, every mind is mistaken. It's actually also mentioned at the end of this chapter, the chapter on mistaken and non-mistaken minds. Every mind is mistaken, and that inherent existence appears to every consciousness, except, of course, to the direct realization of emptiness, which doesn't make any difference to us because as ordinary beings or ordinary people, we haven't realized emptiness. Okay, so all our minds are mistaken. But at the same time, the Prasangika school would say, if a snow mountain appears to be blue to an eye consciousness, it must be a wrong consciousness. If the horns of a rabbit appear to be if the ears of a rabbit appear to be the horns of a rabbit, well, again, wrong consciousness. So this is true for any appearance, even if a single moon appears twice. I mean, if you have the appearance of two moons, that doesn't even mean that one moon appears to you. There's a totally wrong appearance, and therefore it's a wrong consciousness. But at the same time, they say everything appears inherently existent. Everything appears to exist in a way in which it would be impossible for phenomena to exist. However, still, according to the Prasangika school, and of course, according to Lama Tsongkhapa's explanation, that doesn't make any of these consciousnesses wrong consciousnesses, because you can still perceive the vase, you can still perceive the table, although they appear inherently exist. So why? How do they justify that? And as I mentioned in some of the earlier schools, like the Sakya, Kagyu, Nyingma, they actually say that that all our consciousnesses that perceive conventional truth are wrong consciousnesses, not just mistaken, but wrong. In other words, their objects don't exist. In other words, conventional truth don't exist. Which becomes really, really difficult, because in the end, all you have is emptiness.
Right.
So therefore, my question is, according to Lama Tsongkhapa's explanation, how can you account for an eye consciousness that, despite its mistaken appearance, it can still perceive things that do exist? That was the homework. Oh, it's really difficult. I mean, I've asked you something that is really hard. I don't know, Gonzalo, if you have any suggestion, you're welcome to.
The only thing that came as I was listening to you was similar to what Bernardo Tekchok was saying, something regarding the function, like you're not mistaken with regard to the function of the object, so you can still kind of use it and relate to it in a relatively effective way.
But what about if the function would be impossible? Which function, if the table existed inherently the way it appears to us, or the vase, which function could it perform? It couldn't hold water. It couldn't, I don't know, couldn't be picked up. It couldn't be used in any way. It couldn't give rise to results. Couldn't generate its own results or give rise to its own effects.
But I mean, for some reason, in fact, even though I see a table as inherently existent, I still use it, right?
Yeah, but that's a contradictory view. That's a contradictory view. You use it, of course, there is, of course, an existent table that you use, but you believe it to exist in the way in which it's impossible. So therefore, the functions of what you perceive, of what appears to you, don't exist. Of what appears to you. The function of that appear to you.
Right, but that doesn't mean I'm mistaken with regards to the function of the table, right? I'm not mistaken with regard to the function of the table.
No, but you're not perceiving. I'm saying you're not perceiving the table. You're perceiving an inherently existent table. Because an inherently existent table appears to you. And why am I saying that you perceive an inherently existent table? By reason of because an inherently existent table appears to you. There's a pervasion, because if a vase appears to you in a way in which it doesn't exist, you perceive that vase to be whatever, a pillar, for instance, right? If the white snow mountain appears to your mind as blue, then your mind actively apprehends a blue snow mountain. So I'm saying that should also be the case when it comes to inherent existence. When I take to mind a vase, that vase appears to me as inherently existent. Therefore, I should engage an inherently existent vase. I'm just comparing the two. In every case other than inherent existence, in every other case, something appears as blue while it's not. It's a wrong consciousness. Its main object doesn't exist. Something appears to be a pillar while it's not. To a mind, while it's not a pillar, well, then that mind doesn't have the object of engagement doesn't exist. Why is that not true for the appearance of inherent existence? Despite the appearance of the vase as inherently existent, still you perceive an existent vase. Why is that?
Yeah, I think this will have to be homework for tomorrow for me.
Well,
Um, yes, and
does it
yes,
do with
Venerable
Agri-
Hakila? Yeah, please
Yes.
give it. Go ahead.
I'm throwing rocks in the dark, I know, but does it has to do with the mode of perception?
In what way?
Well, in the way that it is not the quality of what is observed, but in the mind of the one that observed that makes it inherently like the view of like when we view all things to be perishable, the view of the all purpose, I don't know. One makes inherently existence.
What's the difference between making the blue snow, the white snow mountain be blue? I mean, to your mind, it appears that way, and then that becomes your object of engagement. Or in the case
Yes,
of
but it's
permanence.
it's the mind that makes it believe it is so.
Yeah, but that's true for any for any mistaken mind. It's always the mind. It's always the mind that, of course, the causes could be different, but in the end, the mistaken thing is the mind, right? I don't expect you to find an answer, but it's great that you're giving it some thought. You can't. I mean, this is really difficult unless you studied Prasangika. It would be really difficult. But the point of the exercise was, as I said, not for you. Well, if you'd found an answer, great. Or if your answer, yeah, were the answer usually given in the text, great. But even without it, it doesn't matter. So I'll just, well, unless Gonzalo, you want to figure it out on your own. Otherwise, I'll tell you.
Yeah, I'll do.
Pardon?
I'll do my best.
So she's asking.
What?
She's asking if you want us to wait for you to be able to think about it, or she'll tell us now.
No, it's okay. It's okay. You can. Yeah.
I don't even know whether you find that answer satisfactory. I'm just saying what Benjamin Tapa, for instance, says. He says, we've had this particular appearance since beginningless time. This is different to the appearance of the appearance of, I don't know, a pillar as a vase, or the other way around, or the horns of a rabbit and so forth. We were not born with such a misconception. But when it comes to inherent existence, it's been with us since beginningless time. And not just that, every single one of our minds is affected by it. So therefore, due to that habituation, it allows us nevertheless to see the actual objects. That's what Benjamin Tapa says. So we can still relate to objects simply because we're so used to this mistaken appearance. So in other words, if you have some kind of impairment, you've always had it, you can find ways around it. I'm just drawing this parallel. He doesn't say that, but I don't know if you have some visual impairment, there's something wrong with your eyes, then if that suddenly affected you, you wouldn't be able to see, you wouldn't be able to live a normal life. But if you've always had that impairment, then you're able to work around it and find ways to live with it. So in the same way, therefore, it appears to us, but it doesn't matter. We can still get to the actual object. So that's what Lama Tsongkhapa says. Well, no, that's what Benjamin Tapa says. But I guess, yeah, I haven't seen anything in no other answer. I haven't read any other answer by Lama Tsongkhapa. So that could possibly also reflect Lama Tsongkhapa's answer. Yeah, anyway, it's difficult. And the other option that the Pengarapa, like the earlier kind of Buddhists, other than the Giluks, well, the other answer is that they're all wrong consciousnesses. That's the alternative, which again, I think is difficult. Both are difficult. Lama Tsongkhapa's view is difficult, but the view that nothing exists other than emptiness, I think is equally difficult. Yeah. So there are two alternatives. Okay, someone just
But-
said something. Yeah. Okay.
can-
Gonzalo, go first, and then Venerable Haki. Gonzalo, you started saying something before. Yeah. Go ahead.
You kind of have to say that there's some mistakes with which like you can kind of not get around and
Mhm.
hello.
Yes, yes, there's some mistakes. Yes, go ahead. That you can't get around. That's what I understood. But now you're gone. Hello? Oh, yeah, now you're back. Gonzalo, sorry, you were. I couldn't hear you. Try again.
Hello, can you hear me
Yes,
now?
yes, I can hear you now. Yes.
I mean, whether you call everything mistaken or you call like one mistaken and one erroneous or however you call it, you still have to say that there's some mistakes that you can like kind of handle and still relate to the thing in a reasonable way, like kind of
Yeah. Well,
accurate in regard to the function of the thing. And there's other mistakes in which you cannot do that, right? Is this the distinction?
no, it's saying that you're so used to, all they're saying is you're so used to your mind having that mistaken appearance that you can work around it.
So there's still this. So the distinction is basically mistakes you can work around it and mistakes you can't. Like this is the.
Yes, yes. So mistakes in the sense, mistaken appearances. So mistaken appearances in the first case means ordinary kind of non-innate mistakes. Innate meaning we're not born with them, or they're not temporary.
But when you say through
Wait, just one second. So non-innate mistakes in the sense we're not born with them. And so these mistakes are difficult. They confuse the mind. Whereas when it comes to inherent existence, we got so used to it. Yeah. So we can navigate around it. The mind got used to it. I guess it doesn't specify. Actually, in the text, it just says that the one mistake has been with us since beginningless time. That's all it says. And so we understand that to mean, usually we understand that to mean, well, it's been with us since beginningless time, the mind got used to it.
I see.
I think you give the answer. It's from beginningless time. It's from past life as well.
Yes, exactly. What I'm saying is not innate. When I use the word innate, I'm saying we were born with this mistake. It's also true for seeing the self as permanent, but that doesn't appear to every mind. So not only have we had this mistaken appearance since beginningless time, but there's every single mind of ours, every single mind in the continuum of an ordinary person is affected by it, right? Venerable Lakila, go ahead.
Well, I was saying that I found the answer quite easy to say, oh, it's habituation and it's wrong consciousness. For me, it doesn't answer my doubts when I come to the fact that when I observe the world around me, and I can see that there is more to this than just wrong consciousness.
But Lama Tsongkhapa doesn't say it's wrong consciousness. Lama Tsongkhapa says it's merely a mistaken consciousness.
Merely.
It's merely a mistake. It's merely mistaken with regard to the appearance, but its object does exist. Its main object, its object of engagement, or its main object exists. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Anyway, something to think about and to debate.
Sorry, I have another. Yesterday, you also, I think that you also mentioned the reflection in the mirror as a homework. Is it the thing that habituation makes it inherently existent and merely a wrong consciousness as the same?
Ah, are you saying that the reflection in the face of our reflection in the face, the reflection of our face in a mirror, in that case, it would have to be merely a mistaken consciousness and not a wrong consciousness due to habituation. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
I don't think so, because, well, first of all, it's hard to say, of course, like what do animals perceive, for instance? We really can't tell. But that we always perceive in every lifetime, we would perceive an image in a mirror and figure out at some point. Well, no, we don't even need to go into that. No, we don't know. It's how can I put it? I don't think it's something we're born with. Let's put it that way. I don't think it's that we're necessarily born with that mistake because we can't know where we were born in the past. It's not one of those. It's not one of those. I mean, it's just an external optical illusion, basically. It's an external optical illusion that doesn't have to do anything with our mind, which means it's not passed on from one life to the next. Yeah, that would be the way to say it.
Doesn't this bring up the question, like, how much would we have to familiarize ourselves with a mirror before our consciousness, looking at a mirror would be a valid cognizer and just mistaken? Would it have to be beginningless time?
Well, it would have to be every mind would have to have that appearance, first of all, every single mind. So with the inherent existence, it appears to every single mind. But in the case of the eye consciousness perceiving a mirror reflect, I mean, it can only be an eye consciousness, right? So,
Yeah.
okay, so therefore you're asking when would we be able, so in the same way as with the inherent existence, with the appearance of inherent existence, in the same way, if to every mind our face in the mirror were to appear to be an actual face, would be at some point since beginningless time, would we be able to see our face? I guess it would be the same. I mean, hypothetically, if to every mind, which is absurd, of course, but if to every mind, to every sense consciousness, to every mental consciousness, there would always be the appearance of a mirror reflection, like a reflection of our face, then we would be able, I guess, in the same way. And if that was part of our consciousness, it was because of imprints it left in our mind, and we had that since beginningless time, we should also be able to see the mirror, the reflection as a reflection. Yeah, I guess it would work the same way. Is it clear what I'm saying? I'm stuttering around here, but yeah, so the point I'm trying to make is that here it's not just about having this mistaken appearance since beginningless time, but also that it affects every single mind. Okay. All right. Having said that, okay, now let's continue with the text, the last few pages. There's not much left. According to sources such as above, now where did we get to? I guess, yeah, there was a quote from Shantarakshita from the Ornament of the Middle Way, and then followed by according to sources. Did we go through that part?
No, not yet.
Okay, according to sources such as the above, these are stable causes of error. They have been with us since beginningless time, that have arisen since time. Yeah, that's what it says. Since they have arisen since time without beginning. Since one is deeply habituated to viewing oneself and others as existent in an independent and autonomous way, I looked it up in Tibetan. It does say we're habituated to viewing ourselves and others in an independent and autonomous way. Not everyone would agree with that, because in fact, in most of the text, it says that we don't have an innate sense of existing independently. That's why the view of a permanent, partless, independent self, the coarsest kind of misconception when it comes to the self, accepted by all Buddhist schools. The the view of a permanent part as independent self is said to be intellectually acquired. When we were not born with that view. Why were we not born with it? Because we don't have an innate sense that we exist independently of everything else. We don't have that innate sense. Does that sound familiar to you? Have you heard about that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we don't have that innate sense. Therefore, we're not habituated to viewing ourselves and others as existing in an independent and autonomous way. But that's what the authors say here. Maybe just to simplify it a little bit. Actually, a lot of the time when people hear about emptiness for the first time, they have, of course, a hard time understanding what is it that is being negated here. What is the self that is negated? What is inherent existence? And sometimes the teachers talk about phenomena existing independently. But there's the fault of, therefore, the innate perception of inherent existence. Well, it certainly doesn't perceive the self to exist independently. But there's another problem with this assertion, which is, in particular in the Prasangika school, when you realize emptiness, do you also realize dependent arising? Does the mind that realizes emptiness necessarily, the mind that realizes emptiness, let's say directly, or even conceptually, does it also realize dependent arising?
Why?
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 It doesn't, right? Take the subject. Okay, so I'm just explaining, but yeah, taking the subject, the mind that realizes emptiness, it follows it realizes dependent arising. Why? It follows it does not realize dependent arising. It follows there's a sequence when it comes to realizing emptiness and realizing dependent origination.
Except
What is the sequence? What comes first?
I guess. I guess
realizing the self.
No,
Realizing
No, that's not what I asked. And with regard to realizing the lack of inherent existence of something, for instance, the lack of inherent existence of a table, and the fact that the table exists dependently, which realization comes first?
The lacking inherent existence.
I
The
guess.
lack of inherent existence. Okay. It follows it doesn't come first because first you realize that the table exists interdependently.
um,
No
The reason
provision.
is not established. Well, according to you, who said first you realize emptiness and then you realize dependent origination, the reason would not be established, right? So the reason is established because someone who realizes on the basis of the following syllogism, the subject, the table, it lacks inherent existence because it is a dependently originated object. It follows that the person who realizes emptiness and dependence on that correct reason realizes the interdependence of the table first.
Agree.
Yeah, accept.
It follows, therefore, that you don't realize emptiness before you realize dependent origination.
Maybe.
Yeah, accept.
It follows that you realize the interdependence after realizing emptiness because it's a subtler realization.
Agree.
Because because Lamon Tsongkhapa says so in Islam Ibn Chemo and so forth. There's a difference between understanding or realizing interdependence or dependent origination as a correct reason for emptiness. It's a coarser type of dependent origination. It's not the subtlest type. The subtlest type you can only realize once you've realized emptiness. Once you understand emptiness. For instance, in Lama Tsongkhapa's 3 principal aspects of the path, he's very clear that you only fully realize emptiness when the two, emptiness and dependent origination, assist each other. There's no contradiction. They assist each other. So this is usually understood to mean first you understand that phenomena cannot be found among their basis of labeling, their basis of imputation can't be found. That non-findability in itself is emptiness, yet not enough to fully understand emptiness. After you've understood the lack of inherent existence, you then understand that nonetheless, let's say the table or the eye exists independence. It exists as being merely labeled. So once you understand that, you fully understand emptiness. But the point is that you actually understand the lack of inherent existence first, and then you can understand that the table exists independence. Which means that the table existing independently cannot be the object of negation of emptiness. It cannot be because when you realize lack of inherent existence, you don't realize the lack of existing independently. Because if you were to understand, when you understand emptiness, you would if you had, in the case of realizing emptiness, let's say for the first time, if you also realized the lack of existing independently, you would have to understand emptiness and the dependence on the table of the table right away. You would have a simultaneous understanding of that. Therefore, this is not the correct way to describe emptiness as existing independently. But it's done because most people understand the concept of existing independently. So here, since one is deeply habituated to viewing oneself and others as existent in an independent, autonomous way. As I said, and here there's nothing wrong with the translation. Autonomous, I don't know. It's usually the translation is self-sustaining. Tsuktoba in Tibetan, the word is tsuktoba, as in like self-sustaining, being able to sustain itself. But never mind, autonomous works, I guess, just as well. But the word independent being used in Tibetan as well, I think it's just for our sake, just to make it a little easier. Not that this is actually literally correct for the reasons I just gave. So number one, we're not habituated to seeing ourselves as independent from our body, our mind, for instance. And number two, when we realize emptiness, we don't realize that phenomena exist in dependence on other things automatically. Okay. All right. Yes.
I have a question because I just want to make clear, maybe it's a language thing, but for me, I slowly was familiarized with the quality of the selflessness of the person, and then the selflessness of phenomena. That's the way I express it. Is it pretty much like the three aspects of the path of Lama Tsongkhapa? That's pretty much in the way, for me, I was introduced in those concepts. So when you say selflessness, are we talking about selflessness of the person? When you see what I mean?
Not exactly. No. Are you saying selflessness means emptiness, or are you saying selflessness means something else?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Yes, the play yes, yes.
Okay. Okay. Only in the Prasangika school. In the Prasangika school, selflessness and emptiness mean the same thing.
Okay.
Therefore, you can say emptiness of person, emptiness of phenomena other than person, or you can use the term selflessness of person and selflessness of phenomena other than person. In the other schools, in the lower schools, that is Vaibhashika all the way to the Svatantrika school, they differentiate between, well, first of all, Vaibhashika and Svatantrika doesn't talk about emptiness. But then from the Chittamatra, then taking the Chittamatra and the Svatantrika schools, they talk about emptiness, but they distinguish between selflessness and emptiness.
Okay.
So, yeah. So it's only the Prasangika that says self means really an essence of something, which is another way of saying inherently existent, and thus they explain them in the same way. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. You're welcome. All right. So anyway, having said all this, since one is deeply habituated to viewing oneself and others as existing in an independent and autonomous way, then when anger, for example, arises toward people such as enemies whom one dislikes, and the people who are the objects of that mental state appear to be independently, objectively unattractive. Yeah, again, this is not what happens. There's no innate sense of them existing independently. They exist inherently, they exist objectively unattractive. Objectively is fine, yes.
Would the Sautrantika say that they exist that way? Or is this for all the four schools, would they disagree?
Well, first of all, the first two schools don't talk of emptiness. Okay, existing in an independent and autonomous way. Well, they talk about selflessness, yes. But when you think of the two types of selflessness, usually we distinguish between a permanent partless independent self, or the lack of a permanent partless independent self, and the lack of a self-sufficient substantially existent self. Now, with regard to perceiving the opposite, holding on to a permanent partless independent self, that is said to be intellectually acquired. It's not innate. Whereas the self-sufficient substantially existent self, there are two versions. There's an intellectually acquired one and an innate one. The intellectually acquired one would be regarding the self to exist independently and self-sufficiently substantially, right? Having that aspect of independence. So the moment you perceive the self, let's say, usually the way existing self-sufficiently and substantially, the way it is defined is that you perceive there to be a self that is like the owner of mind and body, the controller, the utilizer of mind and body, and that you could identify that self without having to identify mind or body. Right? That's how usually a self-sufficient, substantially existent self is explained. In other words, the mind that perceives of such an impossible self is such that it perceives the mind to be the controller, the utilizer, the owner of mind and body, plus that it's possible to perceive that owner, that I, without having to perceive mind and body, or mind or body. But this type of perception of the I can have two versions. You perceive that I to exist on top of the misperception I just described. You perceive the I to exist independently of the aggregates, or you perceive them dependent on each other. Right? You perceive that the I as inseparably linked to mind and body. That would be the second version. The first version would mean your mind that holds onto such a self-sufficient, substantially existent I is not innate, because we're not born with that. Whereas the second type, when you see them as inseparably linked, yet still perceive the I to exist as an owner and so forth, and as being able to be perceived without having to perceive any of the aggregates, that is an innate version. So every time, therefore, independence comes in, the moment you perceive something independently existent, independent of its parts, of course, then it must be a non-innate mind. It must be a mind that is acquired in this lifetime, intellectually, philosophically, what have you. Is that clear?
So,
Do you understand?
so with regard to this description here of like seeing an enemy,
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I think this is the watered down version for those who've never heard about. You see, like oftentimes when you ask a Lama, like, what does inherent existence even mean? They say, oh, existing independently. What they actually mean is this is not the same. It doesn't mean that when you perceive one, you perceive the other, but it follows from that. If the I were to exist the way it appears to us, it would absurdly have to exist independently. But that's not what appears to the mind. It would have to be permanent, for instance. The self would have to be permanent. So there are certain consequences, there are certain absurdities our view of inherent existence gives rise to. It would have to be non-existent in the first place. So there are all these absurdities. But for us, easiest to understand is it would have to exist independently. I don't understand why the authors say this here, because I don't understand means, I guess I understand to a certain degree. I wouldn't choose this. I wouldn't choose this because it gets confusing, but never mind. Yeah, so I guess it's this ordinary way sometimes to explain emptiness in a simple way. Does that make sense?
Deshima, can I ask a question?
Yes.
So when we perceive something being inherently existent, there's like certain absurdities that would follow from that we don't perceive, right?
Yes.
Could we say that when we perceive something that according to the Prasangika is like erroneous instead of mistaken, these absurdities are not there?
Huh? Sorry, I don't understand. They're not there? The absurdities are not there?
Yeah. Like when we perceive a pot as being a pillar,
Yes. Oh,
like, I don't know, I'm
uh-huh.
trying to draw the distinction between these two, and I was thinking about something regarding that, like,
Oh, there would also be certain absurdities. So if a vase were to be a pillar, then hypothetically there would be certain absurdities. Is that what you mean?
I'm not sure if there would be certain absurdities.
Oh, yes, there would be. Like, there is a way to say, like, hypothetically, right? If it were such and such,
Yeah.
because there are always absurdities if you have a view that doesn't accord with reality. Like, for instance, if the ears of a rabbit were the horns of a rabbit, the rabbit would be deaf. Or, I mean, unless they had ears somewhere else, located somewhere else. I mean, you can always say there's certain absurdities that would give rise to it. Like, I don't know, it's a little difficult off the top of my head to come up with something, but yeah, like saying that the rabbit would be deaf, or if a blue snap, if for instance there was an infertile woman could have a child, then what would that mean? A man could have a child, right? If an infertile woman could give birth to a child, then a man could give birth to a child.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean that if you misperceive, you have the wrong view that an infertile woman can give rise to a child, that you necessarily also hold on to a man giving birth to a child. But that would follow from that absurdity.
I see. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think.
So in a debate, we often use this. We say hypothetically, if that were the case, that would follow from it, right?
Yeah.
It's just one example that just came up in another class that I'm teaching. For instance, usually what is said is that when you realize emptiness directly, and you start eliminating some of the obstructions to liberation or to enlightenment, as you realize them, the obstructions are already gone. So, for instance, when you remove the intellectually acquired obstructions to liberation, as you enter into the meditative equipoise directly realizing emptiness, they're gone. They're no longer there. It's not like they're there one moment and then they're gone. So this seems really difficult because then people ask, well, then you have already attained the cessation. You have already eliminated them. And the answer is no, you are eliminating them, but they're not there. So then in a debate, the debate that arises from that is, well, it follows it has already been eliminated because they're no longer there and they will never arise again, right? So here the answer is hypothetically, if that person were to arise from that meditative equipoise while realizing emptiness, if they were to arise before the cessation is attained, they would come back. But it never happens that anyone arises from it. Because they say, like, when you realize emptiness directly and you're eliminating certain obstructions, it's like kicking out a thief. You kick out the thief, but you have to make sure the thief doesn't return. You have to close the door. So once the door is closed, you have attained the cessation. But when you already push the thief out, they're no longer in the house. So that's like applying the direct antidote to one of the obstructions. So the obstructions are gone, but the door is still open. And in a debate, you usually ask them, so is there a chance that the bodhisattva, for instance, gets up from the kind of arises from that meditative equipoise too early and they return? And the answer is usually no, it doesn't happen. But if it were to happen, that's possible.
I see.
You see? So it's an impossibility. It wouldn't happen, because just the mind of the bodhisattva being so controlled, they're not going to rise from that and so forth. However, you can always speculate, what would it be like? That's a very good way of debating. We say, hypothetically, if such and such were the case. We debate that a lot, actually. I'm sure you're familiar with that. I don't know, you've probably heard in class. Yeah. So hypothetically, let's look at it if that were possible. In fact, all our debates are based on a certain hypothetical scenario, because consequences don't, when you use consequences, you're not saying, oh, you're wrong, it's not like this, it's like that, but you're saying, okay, let's assume that's true. It follows, right? Yeah. But you can more directly do it in a debate, saying, let's say what you're saying is right. Yeah. Okay. Okay, so similarly, Descent into Lanka Sutra says, just so, Mahamati, spiritually immature beings have minds affected by misconceptions that proliferate owing to various factors from time without beginning. So they're superimposed, that proliferate, that add to whatever is actually there. They have mental states completely consumed by the fires of attachment, anger, and delusion. As for the second type, conditions that distort the mental sense faculty include dreams, intoxication, and medication. First, we talked about the sense faculties being affected. But then, so the sense faculty, of course, can also be affected by imprints, the imprints of ignorance, for example, or by external causes such as movement and so forth. And then as for the second type, conditions that distort the mental sense faculty include dreams, intoxications, and medication, because these cause the mental consciousness to be mistaken. Yeah, so obviously intoxication, dreams, and medication, yeah, they can all lead to wrong consciousnesses. All right. We discussed dreams before. Does the elephant in a dream exist? No, the dream elephant does. And to be able to perceive a dream elephant, you have to be in a lucid dream. You have to know that the dream is a dream. If you don't experience lucid dreaming, then your dreams would be wrong consciousnesses. You believe them to be reality. Intoxication is clear, and of course we remember sorry, Dharmakirti says in the Pramanavartika, intoxication is actually, well, it's the sense consciousnesses that they're affected, and these sense consciousnesses, they are mental sense or they serve as mental sense faculty in this case, and the mental sense faculty, or the dominant condition of the mistaken or the wrong sense consciousness. And so therefore it's not the intoxication that directly causes a mistaken mental consciousness. It goes via the sense consciousnesses. Remember, it's part of the Pramanavartika. And medication. So this is a very important point, I believe, as an argument from a Buddhist point of view, that the brain doesn't immediately or directly affect our mental consciousness. It's via the sense consciousnesses. Okay. In the Buddhist epistemological texts, mistaken cognition is referred to also by the term fallacious perception. What might be the difference between these two terms? Well, they mean the same thing. So mistaken and fallacious perception. And again, I don't know why they think that is so important. This is such a minor, even in our text, we read through it quickly, and I don't know why the authors thinks this is so important. It's just another term for the same thing. But yeah, anyway, so yeah, Compendium of Valid Cognition, it supports that. It gives now different reasons. I don't think I need to read this. I don't think I need to read this. You can just read it on your own. It's pretty obvious. Like, here's talking about mistaken minds, different mistaken minds, whether they're memory or they're an inference. Oh, maybe one thing I'll read through. So, for instance, there's a whole list or 7 categories of mistaken minds. So number 3 says conceptual cognition of an inference, such as the conceptual cognition apprehending a reason. And then number 4 says conceptual cognition that arises from an inference, such as an inferential understanding based on reasoning. So they seem pretty similar, don't they?
Yes.
But do you understand the difference between the two? No. Okay, so a conceptual cognition of an inference, such as the conceptual cognition apprehending a reason. Well, before, for instance, when you say, take the subject sound, it is impermanent because it's a product. Before you can actually generate or develop number 4, conceptual cognition that arises from an inference, which would be the understanding of sound's impermanence, you have to have other conceptual cognitions of, for instance, what is sound, or what is impermanent, or what is a product. So in this case here, it mentions the sign or the reasoning, which is being a product. You have to understand what a product is. So number 3 is as part of the process of generating an inferential understanding, that process of understanding the different parts of a syllogism, their relationship, and so forth. That is described in number 3. Number 4 is then the result, which is the actual inferential understanding. And all the other examples, you can read them on your own. You can read them yourself. There's no need to explain them. But then if you look at the next paragraph, a conceptual cognition apprehending a reason is called an inference. That's number 3. This is because the thought apprehending a reason is the cause of its resultant inferential understanding based on reasoning. So the name of the result is applied to its cause. So you just call it an inference, but it's actually the cause of that inferential understanding. So the inferential understanding itself would be independence on the syllogism. You understand that sound is impermanent. Whereas in the case of number 3, it's called also a conceptual cognition of an inference because it gives rise to that inference. Does that make sense? Do you understand that? Okay.
One, just to clarify, the third one
Yes.
goes to the inference, and the fourth one is that it's like actually understanding the inference.
The third one is one of the cognitions, one of the conceptual cognitions that you need to develop in order to be eventually able to generate number 4. For instance, you need to know what a product is. In the case of so understanding product, what is a product? Or understanding that sound is a product. The conceptual cognition that sound is a product, which is the first of the 3 modes. Understanding the first of the 3 modes is described as a conceptual cognition of an inference, because it gives rise to the eventual or to the later understanding of sound's impermanence. So
all the steps that you need to make in order for the actual inference to arise.
yes, exactly. For the actual inference to give rise. So it's the cause of that inference. And this is something that is used a lot in Buddhism. So giving the name of the cause to the result, giving the name of the result to the cause. In fact, we do it all the time. Can you give me an example in everyday life where you take the name of the cause and give it to the result?
I'm planting a tree.
Yeah, I'm planting. No, that's the example of the name of the result given to the cause.
Right. Yes,
So I'm asking for the name of the cause given to the result.
Maybe that guy turned 20 today. Or he's 20 years old or something.
When is he going to be 20 years old? If not that day. Tomorrow is 20 years in one day, right?
You could say the sun is hot today.
Yeah, the sun. Okay, I get a lot of sun in my room, right? I have a lot of sun in my room. You don't want the sun in your room. It's the rays of the sun, right? So you don't have sun in your room, you have the rays of the sun in your room, which is the result. Does that make sense? Or the kettle is boiling. If you're British, they say, like, put the kettle on. The kettle is boiling. The kettle is the cause for the water inside to boil. If without a kettle, you wouldn't have water to boil. So the kettle is not boiling, the water is boiling. Or saying the city
Breathe.
sleeps.
Or
An
breathing,
empty,
Venerable.
pardon?
Breathing. I'm breathing.
You're breathing, but you are
It's,
breathing.
but the effect is the breathing, of the process of breathing.
No, but here we're saying that which does the breathing is the cause. So for instance, the sun, when you say the sun is in my room, you actually mean the rays of the sun. Or when you say the kettle is boiling, you actually mean the result of the kettle, which is the water inside it. That is boiling.
How about my lungs are breathing?
Ah, okay, your lungs are breathing. Yeah. So your lungs are not actually breathing. Your lungs are the foundation for, yeah, that breath to take place. Yeah, in that case, exactly. Or the city sleeps, like the city is the people that sleep. Without a city, you couldn't have city people, and an empty city is still a city. Yeah, so these are examples, exactly. And then the examples of the name of the result given to the cause, you already said, I'm planting a tree. It's not a tree yet. Other examples?
In British English, they say lift. They call elevators lifts.
Lift. Mm-hmm. Ah, oh, okay. So the result is actually the lifting, but I'm getting onto a lift. Yes, it's about to lift me. Yeah, I guess you could say that. Or sometimes you say that's a delicious recipe. The recipe is not delicious. It's gives rise to delicious food. So anyway, once we understand, we use that in everyday language, and of course we understand what it means. In Buddhism, that is done a lot, which can sometimes confuse us. Like in this case here, number 3, it's called an inference. So here you give the name of the result to the cause. Yet then if we understand that this has happened, then we understand, as Gonzalo says, yeah, this is the cause, this is the cognition, which eventually gives rise to the resultant actual inferential understanding. Yeah. All right. Okay, I think we're done. Let me just quickly go through so then again, there's another 7 types of fallacious perception. I think they're all pretty clear. They're not difficult to understand. And then you have the definition of an unmistaken cognition. Of course, it's the opposite of a mistaken cognition. And so at the very end, it nicely summarizes mistaken mind. So according to the Sautrantika and the Sautrantika Madhyamika systems, direct perception is always unmistaken. For them, a visual cognition of blue is an unmistaken mind, an unmistaken cognition. Conceptual cognitions mistake their object's universal or meaning generality for the object itself. Thus, they are necessarily mistaken cognitions. Yes, no matter whether they are mistaken or unmistaken regarding their object as cognized. So with regard to their main object, that's a different matter, whether they're mistaken with regard to their main object, because, well, if they were, then of course they would be wrong. If a non-conceptual consciousness is unmistaken regarding its object as cognized, then it must be unmistaken regarding its appearing object. So if it's non-mistaken with regard to its main object, it must also be unmistaken with regard to its appearing object. That is the view of the Sautrantika as well as the Sautrantika Madhyamika, or Sautrantika Svatantrika Madhyamika as its proper name. So the Sautrantika Svatantrika Madhyamika, of course, is part of the Madhyamika school. Therefore, if a cognition is unmistaken, it must be a non-conceptual consciousness. Also, since directly perceiving subsequent cognitions and indeterminate or non-attentive perceptions are also unmistaken cognitions need not necessarily be valid cognitions, don't necessarily need to know their objects. And then lastly, taking into consideration also the other schools, so according to the Chittamatra, the Yogacara Svatantrika Madhyamika and the Prasangika Madhyamika systems, visual cognitions apprehending blue and so on are mistaken cognitions because they're distorted by a deeper course of error. Here, the Chittamatra school, again, they have a hard time because in this case, external existence only appears to certain sense consciousnesses, well, it only appears to sense consciousnesses and to certain mental consciousnesses. But they would have to say in the same way that the mind still perceives its object. I mean, perceives something that exists, because otherwise all their sense consciousnesses would be wrong consciousnesses. As for the Prasangika Madhyamikas, they consider all conceptual and non-conceptual cognitions within the mind stream of ordinary beings to be mistaken cognitions, yet they also maintain that all instances of cognition directly apprehend their own appearances. Oh, so this is also saying they know their own appearances. They always have an appearance arise to them. This is very interesting. And it actually makes sense. So when you have a wrong consciousness, the wrong consciousness perceiving the blue snow mountain, it knows the appearance of the blue snow mountain. It realizes something. In the Prasangika school, they say every mind realizes something, even if it's a wrong consciousness. It realizes its own appearance, what appears to it. I'll repeat that next time because it's quite important. You need to know that in general. But anyway, I think we're done with mistaken and non-mistaken minds. And next time we'll have one class tomorrow on eliminative engages and collective engages, which is just briefly mentioned here, but not really explained before we move on. All right, great. Thank you. Let's do the dedication.
Having thoroughly investigated in accord with all that I have heard, day and through the four reasonings, mind born of reflection of the topics of contemplation, may this discernment sever all doubts.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Geshe-Mala.